Hey, what's going on, everybody? Before we get into today's topic, make sure you go to dynamichp.net/newsletter and get signed up for my newsletter that comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 a.m. Pacific time. So, what I wanted to talk about today is culture, what I call the GAS KILT. So, um, I'll run through a couple samples from just the past few days with some cool stories. But I think especially when you're getting involved in human performance in any capacity, the culture that you create is everything, and the culture that you accept and the culture that you push back against is all part of it. So um, here's some examples. Number one, I have been at the Fairchild Air Force Base for 3 years now, and I work with SEER specialists and students that are currently in training, along with some other permanent party folks. And yeah, that's my mouthy little Yorkie. So hopefully he'll shut up. But anyway, I've been here for 3 years, and when I first got here, I didn't say anything. I just observed for a few months, and I asked questions, and I got to know all the people and learned a lot about what goes into this kind of training, and I learned from everybody. I didn't just come in as having some sort of authoritarian structure, because I don't think that works. And if it does work, it doesn't last long, and people don't respect you. So, uh, number one is coming in and seeing what's happening already, talking to people, getting to know them. And most recently, with dynamic human performance, I've started working with local fire department. So that has been the same approach, where I go in and I talk to some folks that are already there, that have been there, know that world, and I learn. And then gradually over time, as I'll get into what the GAS KILT is here in a moment, but gradually over time, people become more receptive to things you have to say. But, um, you know, both styles and both stories I'll talk about are very, very important. So, GAS KILT, what it stands for is GAS stands for give a shit. So you actually have to be genuine and actually care about the people you're working with. This goes for any profession if you want to be successful, but especially coaching, especially when you're getting into the realm of pushing people to do things they never thought possible. So that's number one, GAS. KILT is KLT is know, like, and trust, but KILT is know, I like you, and trust you. So those two components are absolutely necessary to having a successful coaching career. So, and again, this applies to any kind of career, but especially coaching, especially anything where you're in any sort of role where people may work under you, or you have some sort of say of what goes into their day to day. So people can read right away if you're a genuine person or not. So you have to really truly care about the people you're working with and what the outcomes are for them. So here's a couple stories just from the past few days. So number one was, I had a guy in my office the other day, and we were just hanging out talking about his injury history and things like that. And while he was hanging out, shooting shit with me, there were three separate people on three separate occasions that, unless otherwise noted, the door to my office is always open. So anyway, some people poked their heads in on separate occasions and said, one guy said, "Hey man, I need help with my low back. It's been giving me some issues. Can you help me out?" "Yeah, sure, no problem." Okay, next guy comes in, separate time. "Hey, I just got back from some training. My knee's been giving me some problems. Can you help me out?" "Yeah, let's schedule a time." Third guy pokes his head in. "Hey, my ankle and knee are giving me issues. Can we work on it and talk about strategies?" "Yeah, sure, no problem." And I turned to the guy who was sitting in my office, and I was like, "Hey man, just so you know, what you just saw has taken 3 years of handshakes, building relationships, getting to know people, and truly caring about what happens to them physically, as well as mentally, but especially physically. So that stuff did not just happen overnight. It was a long, long process of getting out there, meeting people, talking with them, letting them know that I'm going to meet them where they're at. They're not going to have to follow some, like, this is the only program that we have to follow and everybody follows it. That shit don't work. And it especially doesn't work with any type of tactical or military. So you really have to build that relationship and take time to sit down, have those conversations, and be genuine, and people will gradually, slowly warm up to you, and then they will know you, like you, and trust you, and then they will be more receptive to the things you have to say. So that's in instance one. Instance two was at the firehouse last night, and there's one firefighter I was talking with, and this guy has some blood work that his numbers are not where we need them to be right now. We do have a concern for where his health is headed if he doesn't change some things. So him and I just sat down and started talking about what are some nutritional changes he'll need to make, and how do we manage stress, how do we manage sleep, things like that. Meanwhile, there was another firefighter who came in and sat down, and I knew he was listening in. And I didn't change anything about what I was going to say. It was all the same, but I knew that he was listening, so this was a good sign. And then after the first firefighter left, this guy started asking some questions about his own stuff. And I was telling him that, wherever I go, I want this to be a place where people feel comfortable and feel like they can actually open up and have discussions that need to be had. Okay, so especially for men, because guys especially are really bad about burying that shit down. Don't talk about it. Don't let anybody know that I have a problem or whatever. And then this can lead to high blood pressure, elevated stress, and then we're set up through those two mechanisms, dominate a lot. Okay, well, it's no wonder why guys have so many heart issues and guys have cancer, all this stuff, and the suicide rate is what it is. A lot of this stuff is just because there's never been permission given to talk about these things. But when you help people understand that all this stuff affects performance, all this stuff affects their loved ones, because their loved ones can feel that, so they can feel that, that person is not where they should be mentally or physically. So when you start tying it all together in that way and saying, like, if you're stressed out, you're not going to perform. If your numbers are not good, you're not going to be around for your loved ones. And you start helping them understand that it's this huge, comprehensive piece that affects performance. It's not just how much weight can you lift. It is getting a handle on your blood panels, getting a handle on your blood pressure. What's your resting heart rate look like? How are you managing stress? Are you talking to anybody? All that stuff. What's your nutrition looking like? All that stuff affects performance. So if you truly want to make a change, number one, you have to be a genuine person and actually care. Number two, you have to understand that those relationships take a long time to build, and you have to be willing and able to put in the time and the effort to go in and have those conversations with folks and be an incredible listener and listen to what they have to say. Meet them where they're at. Not just going in and trying to lead by telling people, because that shit does not work. And if it does, it'll work very, very short time, and then guys will literally say, nah, I'm gonna go do my own thing. So, all right, so that last video got interrupted by a phone call. So here's what I was gonna finish with. So when you are in any sort of leadership or coaching position, it's important to remember that, for me, for example, yes, I need to know the science of how and why the body works the way it does, and I need to communicate sometimes complex things in a very simple manner to folks. But most importantly, an old cliche is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that is vital. It is absolutely necessary to be a very good listener, to genuinely care about the folks that you're working with, and make sure that you are continuing to evolve and become a better communicator, a better listener. So in some capacity, you should always be reading books, going to seminars, interacting with other coaches, interacting with people who are not involved in the coaching profession at all. Maybe you're learning from folks who are sales professionals. But in some capacity, you're trying always to become a better communicator. As an example, I just got done reading a book about sales. It's called "You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar," and that whole book is about interacting with people, because I am involved with interacting with folks all day long, and I need to know really how do I do that to the best of my ability. So at this point, do I need to go further and further and further down the rabbit hole of highly advanced scientific training if I'm just trying to build a relationship with somebody? So the science is super cool, it's really interesting, but the most important part of this whole thing is the person standing in front of you that is trying to get out of pain, or trying to lower their blood pressure, or improve their triglycerides, or whatever. Listening to that person and being present is an absolute key to coaching and leadership. So if you guys have questions about anything, please feel free to email me anytime, travis@dynamichp.net, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. Have a good day.